Today, we're going to be reacting to a video recently posted by Danny of the channel Lifting Vegan Logic. Let's see what's new in the land of veg-olicism, shall we?
So dude, you're vegan now, huh?
Yep, that's right.
So can I just ask a couple questions?
Sure, go for it.
Don't you miss meat?
There's vegan meat and it's pretty good, so no.
Oh, okay.
The first thing that comes to mind is that it wouldn't just be the taste of meat, but also the nutrition that meat contains. When I tried a plant-based diet, very heavily plant-based mind you, and very happily so, it wasn't necessarily the taste of meat that I missed, but it was the sense of actually having eaten a meal that I missed. It's called satiation, and it was virtually impossible for me on a plant-based diet. I'm not unique in that, and there is a scientific reason why. The plant kingdom has deficits, and the animal kingdom doesn't. Not to mention that vegans will happily tell you themselves how much they miss meat by how they can't stop trying to replicate the taste and texture of it. If I really wanted to have sex but resorted to getting off with a dildo, sure, I could achieve an orgasm, but it's nowhere near the same kind of experience as actually having sex with another human being. Also, if my ultimate goal was to get pregnant, it would be a scientific impossibility. So me trying to replicate that is just me trying to replicate something that I really want, but can't or don't have. By the way, the name of this video is Why People Quit Being Vegan. We're in the things some people say when trying to explain why they're not vegan portion of the video, which is most of the video. If I'm being charitable, I would recognize that this person has the foresight to realize that at some point they're going to want the real deal again. It's going to be very difficult for them to avoid the call, and it won't just simply be because of the taste, but because they actually can't replicate the nutrition. Also, since we're rather early on in the video, I'd like to point out that when I'm referring to vegan, especially in the context of this video, it is only about the diet, because that's what this video is about. Danny later mentioned something very interesting that almost makes it seem as though it's not about diet, but we'll get to that when it's pertinent.
So do you do it for the animals?
Yes, I do.
But isn't eating animals natural?
Rape and killing are natural. Something being natural does not tell you if it is good.
Okay.
Sometimes people will try to explain why they aren't vegan with what is called the naturalistic fallacy. It being a fallacy, it isn't a reasonable position to take. Sometimes vegans will purposely misunderstand or misrepresent what the actual argument is because the person can't articulate it properly, or because the vegan is purposely being facetious, or maybe they're just not very bright. But that isn't my contention here. People who talk to vegans don't always understand their motives. Basically, vegans are looking at it from a moral standpoint. So any practical reason or any common sense reason, any actual legit nutritional reason for consuming animal products is never going to fly with them. They have a my way or the highway way of looking at it because it is an ideology, a religion, so to speak. The problem with this is, in no way, shape, or form does a person need to justify the acquisition of nutrition. Generally speaking, no animal or other type of living thing has to do that, sentient or not. If a vegan wants to argue that there is some kind of compulsion, they would have to demonstrate that it's something other than an unfounded assertion that they may as well have just pulled out of their ass, that they try to back up with a baseless ideology. So basically, what it'll boil down to is vegans deciding that they don't want to eat animals because they've deluded themselves into believing that they're actually saving animals or preventing animal harm or exploitation in doing so, which is laughable. Them coexisting with people who aren't trying to prevent them from being able to do that, no matter how stupid it is, versus a person who just eats without having an ideology dictate to them what can or cannot be on their plate. You don't owe them not eating meat. They don't owe you eating meat. If they want to argue that for whatever reason they pull out of their ass that you do, then just counter it and tell them that for whatever reason that you pull out of your ass, they owe you eating meat. Then they'll have to justify their non-meat consumption to you. And whether or not it's acceptable is based on the individual that you're speaking to, obviously, but not the person defending themselves as an individual, obviously, and not based on anything objective or anything that makes sense at all. If this sounds ridiculous, it's because it is. Welcome to what trying to communicate with a vegan generally boils down to.
Okay, but we've been eating animals for thousands of years.
Rape and killing have also been happening for
Thousands of years. Got it.
This is one of those situations where it becomes patently obvious why nuance is very important. When people make this argument, it isn't just to say that because it's been happening for thousands of years, it's good. There's more to it than that. If we have a question of what it is that a human should be eating, an ideology cannot give me the answer to that question. That's just another reason why it's completely irrelevant when it comes to diet. Real science gives us the answer to that question. We can take a look at our history and see what humans have been doing for the past 100 years, 1,000 years, a few 100,000 years, however far back we want to go, so we can recognize why our physiology is the way that it is and how to properly maintain good health. Fields such as anthropology and paleoanthropology give us a good idea of what we used to eat and how we've evolved. So if a person isn't motivated by a baseless ideology, if we're motivated by reason, or something simply reasonable, such as the legit proper acquisition of nutrition, them getting their answer from relevant scientific fields makes perfect sense.
Long.
So we're actually doing this.
Doing what?
The thing where you ask me infinite questions to find a loophole in veganism to make yourself feel better about
Okay, but what if you were on a
stranded island and it was just me and a pig? Was that your question?
I mean, yeah, so what would you do?
I don't know what I would do, but I'm not in that situation and I have grocery stores.
Grocery stores are mostly full of things that are not food. You have to go around the aisles to try to get anything that is actually legit human food, and even when you can find that, it's likely been tampered with to make it less nutritious, or it's filled with stuff to make it more palatable or cheaper, or all of the above. Basically, everything is of substandard quality because of our over-reliance on agriculture and our disregard for human health and safety in the environment. For people who actually want to try to eat well, for people who actually care about their health, this is one of the stupidest things a person can possibly say. You have vegans who are trying to make this desert island scenario a reality for people who just want to eat real food.
Okay, but don't plants?
No, we don't have a good reason to think that plants feel pain as they do not have a central nervous system. Anything else?
It doesn't matter if they can feel pain. Nothing wants to die to feed you, whether it's an animal or a plant. If you never received permission to do what you wanted to do with any particular thing, you basically just took it and did with it what you wanted without asking questions, all to selfishly subserve your own survival as though that's something that is owed to you, as opposed to something that you take into your own hands to ensure. Many plants have their own way of getting back at the beings that eat them. That's how we know plants aren't food, those of us with common sense, that is. I eat meat, fish, dairy, and eggs because they are actual food. You poison yourself with plant garbage you've convinced yourself is food because you're under the mistaken impression that it's actually saving animals or that somehow magically there's less culpability there, so you feel justified. It's laughable. I don't ask questions because I don't have to ask for permission to eat. But even if I wanted to do things that I felt were quote-unquote vegan, it wouldn't look anything like what you're doing looks like. And you still have the right to eat how the heck you want without me interfering and without having to ask permission. You think animals wanted to die to protect the crap that you eat? Do you think that even if we got rid of all animal farming, that there wouldn't be a single animal that was exploited or died for you to have crops? That the continued genocide of living creatures wouldn't continue? That the environment wouldn't be negatively impacted? That eventually we wouldn't even be able to grow the crap you consider food?
Are you good?
Okay, but protein and B12, how do you get that?
All whole plant-based foods have all essential amino acids, and for B12 you can have fortified foods or a supplement.
Okay.
I want to give Danny credit for the video because it's really well done, but this format is useless for this kind of conversation. Of course, humans are incredibly resilient creatures. We'll pull whatever we can from whatever it is that we eat to try to survive. It's true that you can get all amino acids from different plant sources, but again, this is where some nuance is required. The difficulty is, as I mentioned before, these plants are heavily defended and they don't want you eating them. So the consumption of them is not without harm. Plants are medication and should be treated as such. They are things that we can use to help us recover if we're experiencing some kind of problem, but they are not capable of sustaining our life on their own because of the deficits that they have in nutrition, and at the same time, they shouldn't be regularly consumed because they are toxic to us. That being said, they are not food and shouldn't be treated as such. I understand that the pharmaceutical industry puts out supplements that are regulated as food, but I'm not an idiot. I know that they're not food. I know that they're medication, and that's how everyone should see them. We should not be relying on medication to try to keep people alive in situations in which we still have real food available to us. Is that a controversial statement to make? When we're talking about the bioavailability of these amino acids, the package that they come in terms of animal products are just simply too perfect. The commonly touted BBBE way of eating, which stands for beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, allows you to receive all of those amino acids in one fell swoop. There's no need to mix and match. There's no need to check a chronometer or something to track if you've done a good job or not. And there's no need to include the only non-essential macronutrient, carbohydrates. I'm not going to go into too much detail about why the consumption of carbohydrates is bad. We just need to understand that carbohydrates are found in the plant world, and we've already established that plants are not food. What's that? You disagree with me? Carbohydrates are not essential for a reason. Yeah? There's not a single essential plant that exists on this planet for human beings. Yeah? Yet, we cannot survive without the consumption of protein, nor the consumption of fat, nor without the complete spectrum of essential macronutrients, all of which can be found within the body of ruminant animals, especially nose to tail. Blood, bone, marrow, organs, milk included. You don't disagree with me, sweetie. This isn't my opinion. You disagree with the science. Disagree with reality, for that matter. Stick your hand in the flame, convinced it won't burn you because I didn't flash a study on the screen proving it would, and get back to me how that works out for you. You own some cows, you have some backyard chickens, you have complete nutrition. You have the protection of your health. Treat the animals well, let them live their life out. You reduce animal exploitation to within what is reasonably practicable. You also have a way to keep your land fertile. There's no need for you to destroy the environment trying to grow crops that are just going to destroy your health in the long run anyway. You can actually protect your local ecosystem. This is the most vegan thing I've ever heard, and it's my ideal. Not going to a supermarket to get some flippin' Beyond Beef.
Okay, what about humane farms, like humane slaughter?
Would you let me kill your dog if I did it humanely?
No, but dogs are bred to be pets.
Dogs are bred for food in various places around the world. If you found out tomorrow that your dog was bred for food, would you let me humanely slaughter them?
Okay.
The main problem with this question is that he keeps saying your dog, as in the dog that I own, as in the dog that legally belongs to me, as in the dog that I've taken on as my property. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's alive or not alive. I wouldn't let you get away with destroying my property, and this is not just a legal compulsion. Trust me when I say that. Now, obviously, if we're in what I assume to be the US or some other country in which we don't eat dogs, the assumption is that the dogs were not bred to be eaten and therefore are not safe for consumption for people. I would not advocate the consumption of such animals, generally, unless it was an emergency. Some oversight to avoid foodborne illness is important. I recognize that such animals are either strays or have purposely been bred by humans to legitimately be pets for people. That means that somebody somewhere claims ownership to the animal or that the animal is a free-living, autonomous being. If we found a cat on the street and we both knew it was a stray, and you humanely killed it and ate it, I would think you were really weird and that you were probably going to get sick, and I would be ready to report it to the proper authorities if you did, but I wouldn't try to get you arrested unless I knew it was against the law, and that would be for self-protection more than anything else. In any case, I've already long reconciled with myself the fact that all animals are food. After watching this really bizarre video series when I was younger, I found out that people eat people, and I saw people cook and eat cats. I had to reconcile that with myself, but it happened long before I delved into the ideology that is veganism. I'm pretty sure many other people on the planet have been exposed to this kind of thing as well. So even though for us, because of social conditioning, we're uncomfortable at the thought of eating animals commonly kept as pets, we still recognize that it's totally a thing and that we can eat what we want. If I went to a place in the world where they bred cats and dogs as food, I would recognize that that's what they do and I wouldn't try to stop them. The main reason why I would try to stop people here is because likely the behavior isn't legal. Likely, the animals belong to someone, and then therefore more than likely, the same as if I saw somebody destroying a car, I would report it assuming that somebody's property was being damaged. It's really not that complicated.
Yeah, I get your point, but what about
The jobs that animal farming provides? What about the jobs that dog farming provides? Should we allow people to commit animal cruelty if animal cruelty qualifies as a job?
Okay, definitely not.
It should go without saying that I disagree with this guy. I also don't quite understand why people would get so up in arms about it. Frankly speaking, horses are my favorite animal, but I live in Japan. Bashimi is a thing here. It's called being an adult with a fully formed brain and enough emotional intelligence and tact to not try to force people into my little fantasy world bubble where they never do things that offend my delicate little sensitivities. It's not about me.
Are you done?
Okay, but like what if animals overpopulate if we don't eat them?
Animals are bred into existence for food. If we stop eating them, they wouldn't be bred into existence. They wouldn't overpopulate.
Okay, but what
I guess I don't see the problem. There are people who have taken up the job of culling animals in the wild, right? Is my understanding of life on planet Earth just so skewed that I fed into some kind of lie somewhere? And so for those people, if they take those animals and they kill them and eat them, I would think that that would fall under the label vegan. In the case of dairy farming or other types of animal husbandry, where we're talking about animals that have been bred for us to consume, it's even more important that we make sure that sick animals aren't allowed to potentially taint products we were meant to consume. I spoke about the need to reduce foodborne illnesses before, and I believe this is just one way that we go about that. I guess there are some people who are really sensitive about the fact that we breed animals for different purposes, including to eat them. Simply put, I have difficulty understanding why this is problematic. Humans need to eat, the food needs to come from somewhere. I can see problems with the methods that we use, sure, but the fact that it happens is vital to our existence on this planet. It wouldn't do for us to just wait around for them to breed themselves because there wouldn't be enough food to go around, so I just accept it.
about lions?
Lions kill their kids. Is it ethical to kill your kids now?
No.
One of the funny things is, I would often hear these types of arguments and then I would hear vegans speak against them, but there was something in the back of my mind that told me that they were missing the point, even though I couldn't articulate it myself. When I looked into it, it turns out that the argument isn't asserting that it's okay to do what lions do just because lions do it. This is the same misrepresentation as getting triggered by the word natural and thinking that a person is making a naturalistic fallacy in cases when they're not. I'm not saying it never happens. I'm just saying that some vegans are super trigger happy. The idea is different species have different diets. A natural diet, one that best subserves their ability to survive and thrive on planet Earth. If you took a lion and you tried to feed it plants, even with supplements, the health of that lion would suffer. I'm kind of extrapolating, but this experiment was done with cats before, so it would be the same for other creatures, because the same is also true for humans, so I apply it to lions. That's the argument that's being made from what I understand, and if you believe it isn't, I just steelmanned it. Keep up. Even if the person who's trying to make a similar argument falls short of this argument, What part of what I just said was difficult to comprehend? What part of it isn't sinking in for you to a point where you can just apply common sense and realize that it's a good enough argument to not malnourish yourself? What animal needs to feel compelled to make itself so unwell that it can't reproduce in a couple of generations on account of being malnourished? For those on the other side, for those who actually legitimately care about their health, it matters. It's even more reason to not let a person come to you and tell you about how you're supposed to just be consuming medication as though it's food, especially not for the express purpose of them doing so in adherence to a basis ideology.
No. So stop using lions as a role model for morality.
Okay.
Cute.
But isn't eating animals legal?
Legality does not equal morality. Do you think that slavery was moral when it was legal?
Got it, but wait, not everybody can go vegan.
Can you?
That part was quite fast, so I'll just respond to both points together. I already mentioned before that when a person is deciding what kind of things to eat, morals don't factor in. I'm talking about what kinds of things a person will ultimately eat, not about all of what happens up to the point they consume it. So when it comes to eating meat, I can understand an argument about how we go about treating the animals, but the fact that we kill them and eat them is separate from how we treat them before that happens. Morality is subjective. I repeat, morality is not objective. Morality is a label we use for ideas of right or wrong, good and bad. Ideas of right and wrong and good or bad are value judgment statements. These value judgment statements are based on something. They are based on individual assessment, and they can also be based on goals. Even if these goals have objective ways of being met, the having of the goal in and of itself is not necessary. It's not based in anything. Have a goal, don't have a goal. It's no skin off of the universe's teeth. You come together with other people and find you have a common goal. Great. You decide to form a society in which there are certain ways you expect people to conduct themselves, and for the most part, we agree with each other. The most important things, especially the things that are more objective in terms of the achievement of the goals pertaining to maintaining peace in society, we enact into laws in hopes of deterring people from engaging in them. But for others, we use other methods of persuasion, such as vegans who partake in various forms of activism. Is it right or wrong for me to eat animals? Is it good or bad for me to eat animals? It depends on what my goal is. If my goal is to maintain a reasonably high standard quality of life, and this cannot be obtained through a vegan diet, then objectively a vegan diet would be bad. If my goal is to obtain a reasonably high quality standard of life, and this can be obtained through an animal-based diet, then objectively an animal-based diet would be good. Is it right? Is it just? Well, yes. Yes, it is. Why? For the same reason why it's okay for vegans to have a vegan diet, even though it's morally unjustified. It's because our participation in society is only dependent on our ability to achieve our goals. Vegans have their goal of slowly starving themselves into an early grave, and they can do that. I won't try to stop them from achieving their goal, even as they, in the omnivorous population at large, if we're being real, continue to drive up healthcare costs, forcing others, including myself, to have to eat those costs as a trickle-down negative impact. I want to get up on my soapbox and preach about how people who do things that lead to this result are acting unjustly, but I can't. Because I recognize that people will eat as they please, and so long as they're working and putting something into the system, they can take out of the system what they want to take out of it, so long as they don't stop me from taking out what I want to take out. So long as they're active participants in society, they can take out what they want to get out of it. And if they want to poison themselves with plants multiple times a day, then that's apparently what they want to get out of it. No one is under any obligation to actually take care of their health, as much as it pains me to say that. I just have to eat the negative impact of the irresponsible actions of the people around me. But this is only so long as I have my meat at the end of the day. Actually, honestly, I think that this is one of the most morally unjust things ever. I know that you don't care, vegan activist. The feeling is mutual. That is what this whole part is about. Please keep up. This is the kind of thing that really gets my panties in a twist. But my feelings don't matter here. I don't have any leg to stand on to compel another human being into accepting that they are morally obligated to take care of themselves and to eat properly. No one has one, really. Vegans think they have one because reasons. In any case, I won't go into more detail here because I do plan to make a video about my thoughts on morality more generally. But when it comes to the diet conversation, ultimately the decision is going to be on the individual participant in society. Morals don't really have a place in that ultimate decision. It doesn't mean that we can't have these conversations. It doesn't mean that there isn't anything that we can do to fix things, especially leading up to the consumption of food. What I really want to say is this abusive terminology, the emotional weight of words that people try to wield as a weapon against other people to try to get them to do things that are expressly bad for themselves, for their health, for animals, and for the environment, should take a backseat to reason.
Right.
Okay, but isn't being vegan expensive?
It can be, just like a non-vegan diet can be expensive, but it can also be cheap depending on how you structure it.
Okay.
True. Understanding that the acquisition of nutrition isn't an inherent part of undertaking a vegan diet. Good luck fulfilling your nutritional requirements being cheap, though.
Maybe I'm fine with farming dogs.
No, you're not. You're trying to conveniently change your moral system to feel better about the fact that you're not vegan.
If you're having a conversation with someone, and during the conversation they come to a realization that they may have been wrong for thinking the way that they thought before, and change their mind, is it an appropriate response to tell them to their face that they're lying? So if you're a vegan activist and the person was adamantly against veganism before, but you somehow manipulated them into changing their mind and they decide to go vegan, should we doubt them too? Funnily enough, that's basically how this video ends. It's genius. In any case, if you would have caught me a few seconds before I had the realization after watching that weird-ass video about people eating cats, I would have been all like, oh my god, eating cats is so wrong. It was only after being exposed to some new information and recognizing and realizing that the world is not exactly all that I thought it was, that I could update my understanding of things and therefore update my acceptance of things. People change their minds. People change their positions. It's the only way that your dumbass movement ever gains any traction, no matter how slow it is.
Why do we have to give animals rights? They're not human.
Why do humans deserve rights and animals don't?
Humans are smarter and can contemplate their existence.
So it's fine to farm certain mentally handicapped humans who can't contemplate their existence?
Well,
I have a whole video that goes into this if you want to know a more nuanced take. I touched on it briefly before. My participation in society is dependent on humans treating each other as though they have rights and on their willingness to uphold those rights through law. If that wasn't the case, call this Mad Max, because it would be every living thing, humans included, for itself. I don't do it for nothing. I do it for the promise of living the kind of life that I want to live. If that was taken away from me, these so-called rights would cease to exist. In dire situations in which my health and safety were at risk, these rights would be DOA in their efforts to curb my behavior, to stop me from doing what I need to do in order to survive. It's really not that complicated. You would have to give me a reason to care. You would have to relate it to me in a way that makes sense. Naturally, I should be compelled if it falls in line with my goals. And just in case you're a vegan activist and you need to be told this, because my ideology deems it so is not good enough, because I pulled a moral compulsion out of my ass, feel bound by it because of reasons, is not good enough. It should go without saying, but I think a lot of the stuff should go without saying, but the conversation continues anyway.
what if I said yes?
You would be disingenuously changing your position again to feel better about not being vegan.
Okay,
This reminds me of those street conversations when people just say, oh yeah, I'll look up Game Changers. Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to watch Cowspiracy, or whatever vegan propaganda you want them to look at just to get the vegan to shut up. I guess this has happened so many times that Danny has a complex now, and this is all he can think about when people change their positions due to him being persuasive, but just not in the way that he expected to be.
fine. Let me think.
No, dude, you're doing the thing we talk about every week.
What thing?
Where you cope
With the cognitive dissonance that you being vegan and veganism brings me by making up a bunch of random arguments I never used in any other context ever?
Yes, that's exactly what you're doing.
I find there are so many parallels between street preaching related to religion and veganism. Perhaps for the average person, they don't spend a lot of time considering both sides of an argument. But coming up with reasons why you do the things that you do is very important, not only for healthy deconstruction, but also to bolster your own side. It's amazing to me how many people really did try veganism in vain, only to have to quit due to health reasons. If it weren't for them and their stories, it would be difficult for other people to know what could possibly be in store for them, because vegan activists rely on short quips and sound bites without really giving people a nuanced take. I'm speaking in generalities here, obviously, so please don't tell me about how the one vegan activist that you know actually does that. It's useless. The problem isn't that people can't defend the foods that they eat. The problem is that they are actively trying to defend them at all. They don't recognize that they simply don't have to. That's more damaging than anything else. So instead of trying to post hoc rationalize something that doesn't require rationalization, instead of trying to post hoc justify something that doesn't require justification, their time and energy could be better spent elsewhere. I'm happy to give my reasons for why I do the things that I do for those who are willing to listen. I don't need anybody mistaking it for justification, as though I answer to them or something ridiculous like that. I can explain where I'm coming from in a way that other people can understand them as needed without my emotions being involved. If you do truly feel guilty and you recognize that you're already destroying yourself with food, then sure, Danny and his ilk would kind of have a point. But how about instead of continuing to destroy your health with veganism, or I should say with the vegan diet, why not just change your diet and become healthy? That's part of what I did. Despite feeling as though it is an obligation based on my worldview, I mostly did it because I genuinely want to be healthy. Likely, if I didn't genuinely care about my health, I would have been more than happy to continue to destroy my health the way that I had been doing, understanding that I could get away with it. That's just one way to recognize that obligation simply doesn't hold water as a compulsion in society.
But isn't eating animals natural?
This part was genuinely funny. I hate to admit it, but it's a rather endurable video.
So, dude, you're still vegan? Yep, still against animal abuse. Why do you ask?
You know...
What?
Oh, no, it's just like, I would go vegan, but I just love cheese so much.
Then go vegan except for cheese. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, so just go vegan except for cheese if cheese is truly what's holding you back.
And this is as far as we're going to go today. This was the reason why I wanted to make the response video anyway, and most of the rest of the video is more of the same, although I still have ideas that I may share in relation to them in another video. Danny basically encourages the anti-vegan or the hesitant potential vegan to have cheese if cheese was holding them back. This is something that's very interesting to me because it reminds me of the reason why I started this channel and the reason for the name of this channel. Basically, I think that no matter what kind of ideals you adopt in your life, what kind of ideal world you want to work towards, there's almost always going to be something else that's going to prevent you from making a strict set of rules that you have to adhere to without flexibility. When most of us think about vegans, we often have the idea of the militant vegan, the one who's very strict, the one who will turn on you if you talk about having health problems, the one who will tell you that you did it wrong, the one who will insist that it was always about the animals after all. Basically, that it was never about your health and that your actions, no matter how fruitless they are for keeping up illusions of saving animals, even though that's not actually what you're doing. Different vegans have different levels of extremes, but for the general public, making different choices at the grocery store or still shopping at Burger King or Starbucks to get vegan options is in no way, shape, or form helping or saving any animals, including humans themselves. In any case, this version of veganism that Danny alludes to here is the only version of veganism that anyone should ever accept. Basically, go as far as what is practicable and possible for you. That is, if we're going to have that be the case, there is no, this person's just a vegetarian, they can't be considered vegan, or this person eats meat, and so then therefore they can't be considered vegan. The more people try to make it strict and the more people try to gatekeep, that's where my tongue-in-cheek channel name comes from. I consider myself perfectly fucking vegan, even as I continue to eat animal products, but I don't need the label. My action speaks for themselves. The reason why is because I only consume animal products. I consume very minimal plants. The ones I do come in the forms of spices. I may have something here or there, but my goal is to be as strict as possible where the meal or meals that I have in a day are only the most nutritious foods available to me, and that they are only there to provide nutrition, not to be there for entertainment, and not to be there to serve as an empty gesture for not saving any animals, actually. Recognizing that animals are going to die for any food to be on my plate, whether I'm eating an animal or not, animal death is subserving my life. I recognize that plants are not food, plants are medication, and that's why they cause so much calamity in the body when we eat them as though they are food. I recognize that animal products are the natural food for humans on planet Earth, and that is why I choose to only eat those. I am not trying to convince anybody to change the way that they eat. I should not have to say it again. Nobody has to justify the way that they eat. I would love to put an exorbitant amount of pressure on people who are heavily plant-based to recognize and understand what they're doing, but the most that I can do is try to make sure that people can make informed decisions. The most that I can do is hope that from there, people will make the quote-unquote right choice for their health and their happiness, and that includes something that can be beneficial for the individual, for the environment, and for animals in turn, even as we continue to eat them. And so when Danny says, hey, if not being able to have cheese is holding you back, then just have the cheese. I agree. If understanding that you can't have bacon is stopping you from being vegan, then understand that your form of veganism can include bacon. If you're the kind of person who gets off on having a label, then accept the label and argue anybody who tries to say otherwise into the ground. If understanding that your health would fail on account of you not being able to have animal products, understanding that your health is failing on account of you not partaking in animal products, reincorporating them is okay and you can still be vegan. Just understand that at the end of the day, animals are still dying for you to have food. And every time an animal sacrifices itself for you to destroy your health with a subpar diet, that all of your efforts are in vain, that you're destroying your health for nothing, and if anything, you're making things worse because there's a better option. So you can ask yourself, what is it that you really want? I've learned that I don't know how to make short responses. I'm not good at doing reaction style videos, although I want to try incorporating them more because I would be able to get more content out much faster, which would help grow the channel. It's just one of those situations where my goal of wanting to make sure that my content is very thorough and not cookie cutter clashes with my goal of wanting my channel to grow and understanding that I would need to make repetitive content in order to make that happen. It's funny how this happens in life, how things are not always so black and white. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, be having a good day.